Hello, everyone. I'm Dr. Meg Meeker, and I'm so grateful that you invited me to be part of your conference. I'm a pediatrician, and I became an author in the late 1990s because as I was raising our kids, we have three girls and a son, I was very disturbed by what I saw as the sexualization of kids around the United States. Now, that may not seem like a big deal to adults. What's the big deal if they have the sexy clothes or clothes that show too much skin, or they want to buy shampoos just because they're sexy. But it makes a huge difference in the lives of kids, in the lives of teenagers. And I'll tell you why. Because when kids see sex being sold to them everywhere they turn, they believe that it's important and it's something that they need to participate in. So this has driven the rates of sexual activity among teenagers sky high. And that's very disturbing for several reasons. First of all, um, we now know that there's a link between teenagers being depressed and being sexually active. And I see that. I see that as I speak around the country to teenage girls and particularly teenage boys. We also know that there are many girls who are sexually active with boys, actually, about 40% of girls who are sexually active with boys from 14 to 18 have sex they really don't want to have, but they don't want to hurt their boyfriend's feelings and they don't know how to say no. No one's teaching our girls and our boys how to say no. I'm not going to go down that path. So it's really important that parents understand what's going on. Now, when kids are sexually active, we know that they're more prone to depression, but we also know that there's some physical toll that is taken on them by infections. For instance, we know that 28 million people in the United States will contract a new sexually transmitted infection this year. But what's disturbing to me is that about half of those, 50% of those, will be in young people, 15 to 24. Now, that age group comprises only 30% of our population. So we've got 30% of the people, young people, getting 50% of the infections. And that's a problem. And that's why it's so important to teach kids how to back away from the sexualization and being sexually active. We also know, too, that we're immunizing young girls, of course, and boys against human papillomavirus, and we're giving Gardasil. Now, Gardasil covers about 9 of the HPV types, but they're really more than 80. We have herpes, we have gonorrhea, we have chlamydia. And I know this is hard stuff to hear about it, but it's important because it's potentially affecting your children. 1 out of 5 Americans has a sexually transmitted infection, and many times we miss the infections because there's no symptoms. So this is really very serious stuff, and I'm so glad you're at this conference knowing how to help your kids navigate through the teenagers and early adult years, sort of keeping their wits about them and understanding who they are and that sex is not for kids. And that's very, very important. Schools are trying to help kids and they're giving sex ed programs. But the problem is, A, what's taught is medically way behind usually because they're state sponsored. And B, we know that kids listen far more to their parents than to their teachers. You may not believe that, but they do. Say, my teenager doesn't want anything to do with me. They certainly won't listen to me. But that's not true. They will listen to you. So it's important that you understand what's going on in our kids' culture and then specifically how you can help. So you can make a profound difference. As a matter of fact, you're the number one influence in your kids' lives when it comes to sexual activity. So here we go. Why is this? Every child looks to his or her parent to see how they're behaving, and they mimic those behaviors. I want to turn and talk with you dads for a minute here, particularly when it comes to your daughters, because we know that dads have an enormous impact on the character of the daughter and who she grows up to become. Now, why would that be? Because girls, in addition to boys, but particularly girls, see their dads as larger than life. You're the smartest, wisest, strongest, most capable man in the whole wide world. And you say, no, that's not me. Well, to your daughter, that's you. And she looks up to you. And what you communicate to her matters. It makes her feel good about who she is. And I remember when I was 20 years old, I was dating a fella and my dad didn't really like him. I respected my dad. I loved my dad. And my dad didn't like him. So when the gentleman came in the house, my dad ran down the stairs and kicked him out of the house because he didn't like him. I was mortified. And in fact, I didn't talk to my dad for 3 days. But in retrospect, I realized that his action made me feel so loved and so protected and so cared for. Why? Because I didn't have it in me to tell the guy no, but my dad did, and my dad had my back. And that's what every daughter wants from her dad, to be protected, to feel loved, to feel respected, that she's worth more than what this some guy may give her. I also wrote in my book a chapter called Be the Man You Want Your Daughters to Marry. And again, father's like, no, I can't do that. But here's why I say that, because daughters will look to their dads and see character qualities. They'll see strength or patience or kindness or courage, whatever. And they will admire those because they're in you. And they will want to have that in their husbands in the future. So girls will gravitate toward a boyfriend or husband who's very much like you. And that can go both ways. Now, why would this be? Fathers, you need to realize that in your daughter's eyes, you are her first love. You are her introduction to male love. You show her how men should love her and take care of her. And if she learns to trust you, she will feel more secure in her relationships with men and boys later on in life. But because you are connected to your daughter by this gold thread, if you will, because she admires you and respects you so much, she will seek out healthy love if she sees what it's like from you. So what is it that you can do to keep your daughters away from danger? And your sons as well, but I'm particularly focusing on daughters. Three things. It's important for moms, but it's very important for fathers to show to their kids, particularly their daughters. First of all, you need to give her some attention. Put your cell phone down when you walk in the room. Say hello, make eye contact. 15 minutes a week. Decide you're going to spend one-on-one time with her. Go in the backyard and kick a soccer ball. Take her on errands with you. Go have coffee. Take her for an ice cream, whatever it is. Doesn't need to be a long time, but when you show her attention, she feels important and valued. Second thing is you need to show her affection. You need to hug her. You need to touch her shoulders. You need to pat the top of her head. And some fathers with 14 or 15-year girls say, no, 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 you don't know my daughter. She can't stand to be near me. She can, and she wants affection, but she feels very uncomfortable with herself. So if she's pushing back from you, don't take her personally. Continue to give her affection anyway. And third, you need to give her some affirmation. Find character qualities in her that you admire and affirm them in him and her. Say, you know what, you work so hard. I know you don't like your violin, or you don't like soccer, you don't like, math, but you persevere even when you feel discouraged. So find character qualities in your daughter that you can applaud. It's very, very important. I promise you, moms and dads, that if you work at giving your kids these three things: attention, affection, affirmation, particularly coming from you dads, you're going to win the heart of your kid and they're going to stay out of trouble. And finally, dads, remember, I always tell fathers this, that every girl, every woman takes one man to her grave, and that's you. So if you're a dad with a daughter, you need to know that in your daughter's eyes, you are larger than life, and you always will be. Thanks so much for listening, and God bless.